All street law lessons are based on two basic ideas. Students talk themselves to understanding, and students should be doing the heavy intellectual lifting in class. When you observe a street law class, you should be able to observe these basic ideas in action. This video focuses on 3 tips that facilitators can use in the classroom to make a street law lesson effective. The 3 tips are wait time, checking for understanding, and inquiry. Let's start with the wait time strategy. The wait time strategy is a simple strategy that facilitators can use to increase student engagement and improve student responses to a question. Here's a clip of a street law facilitator using the wait time strategy with students.
So I'm going to read the statement, and then I want you guys to just think about it. Don't get up and go to your spot. Just stay in your seat, take some time to silently, don't discuss it with other people. Just think about where you think you're going to go, but don't get up yet.
In the clip, you may have noticed that the facilitator explicitly asked students to stop and think about the statement he would be reading. By explicitly asking students to do this, then providing the wait time to think silently, students can more fully develop their thoughts. Furthermore, students who may need more processing time are granted that extra time when their instructors use this strategy. After about 30 seconds of thinking time, the instructor then continues the activity, asking students to begin the process of sharing their ideas. When we forget to use the wait time strategy, sometimes we call on students who haven't had time to fully think through a response. We also may not hear from students who take longer to process their responses. The wait time strategy allows students more time to think about their responses, thus increasing the number of students who respond to a question and the quality of those students' responses. In the course of a street law lesson, the wait time strategy is appropriate for frequent use, both when asking more challenging questions and when asking less challenging questions. Facilitators can vary the amount of wait time provided to students based on their best judgment. Checking for understanding is another strategy that instructors can use to ensure that students are prepared to engage in instruction and to support classroom management. It can also be used to ensure that students understand the content. The checking for understanding strategy has 2 primary ways it can be used. It can be used for activities that include lengthy and/or difficult directions, and it can be used for activities that have difficult content and concepts. When an instructor checks for understanding, he or she asks students a question that allows the facilitators to assess whether the student knows the necessary information. First, let's take a look at an instructor checking for understanding about providing directions for an activity.
Each small group is going to split into 2 pairs. If you're facing me, everybody wave if you're facing me. You're on the yes team. Okay, so now that brings us to our no team. Everyone facing away from me. Stay facing away from me, but wave. Wave at the wall. Beautiful. Thank you very much. So you're all no's. Can you look at your partners and acknowledge that you're both no's? Awesome.
In this clip, you'll notice that the instructor asks students to raise their hands for the yes team and wave at the wall for the no team. During this time, she can make a quick assessment about whether the students understand the directions and whether they know who their partners are. If a student does not raise his hand, she can go support that student individually. If most of the class does not raise their hands, she knows that she needs to repeat the directions. This allows her to recognize that students understand the directions and are ready to move forward with the lesson. Now let's take a look at an instructor checking for understanding about difficult content and concepts. In this short clip, the facilitator asks students to explain what the case is about after they have read the case summary.
Can someone tell me what this case is about?
Student responses will then allow the facilitator to check for students' understanding of the case. If the facilitator believes that students understand enough about the case, then they can move on to the next part of the lesson. If she believes that the students do not understand enough about the case, she may choose to reread key sections with students, or she may ask students some simpler questions to help students build their understanding of the case. She may also try a different strategy. Checking for understanding allows the facilitator to decide whether students know enough about the material to continue the activity as planned. When instructors forget to check for understanding, whether it's about complex directions in an activity or about a complex topic, the result is often confusion or chaos in the classroom. The checking for understanding strategy allows the teacher to determine whether students truly understand the activity directions and content in order to move forward with the lesson. In the course of a street law lesson, the checking for understanding strategy is best used at crucial moments in the lesson when students must understand directions or content so that the lesson may move forward. The last teaching tip is less a specific strategy and more of a thread that should weave throughout a good street law lesson. Good street law lessons should focus on inquiry. By focusing a street law lesson on inquiry, students talk themselves to understanding and do the heavy intellectual lifting of the lesson. By inquiry, we specifically mean that instructors should incorporate thoughtful questions strategically throughout the course of a lesson. Let's look at 2 examples of instructors who have incorporated inquiry into their lessons.
So, anyone could answer this. It would probably be easiest for the justices, but anyone could answer it. Which argument from each side was most persuasive, do you think?
In this clip, you'll notice that the facilitator asked students to reflect on which arguments were most persuasive in the activity they just completed. By asking students to reflect on this question, he focuses the heavy intellectual work on students. Here's another example of inquiry embedded in the middle of a lesson.
Do you have an expectation of privacy when it goes to like walking outside?
In this clip, the facilitator is helping students think through a complex legal argument. In order to break down the complexity of the issue, she asks students a basic question that connects both to their own lives and to the legal issues of the case. By asking students to think through the issues of the case, students better grasp their new knowledge and are more prepared to critically engage in the rest of the lesson. When instructors do not focus on inquiry as a key part of a street law lesson, students disengage because they're not required to think critically. Further, students disengage because they have fewer opportunities to talk. Instead, the instructor dominates conversation. Inquiry asks students to make sense of and deeply and critically engage in the lesson material. In the course of a street law lesson, inquiry should be woven throughout the lesson, from the initial questions the facilitator asks to hook students into the lesson to the final moment, when the instructor asks debrief questions about students' understanding of the skills and content learned during the lesson. Great street law facilitators focus on inquiry during the planning process as they write questions into lesson plans. Don't forget to incorporate wait time, checking for understanding, and inquiry into your next street law lessons. Street Law has created instructional videos to guide facilitators through several interactive teaching methods. Visit Street Law's website to view these videos and download supporting resources.